So the topic of virtual teams and virtual collaboration has been studied for decades. But what's been really interesting over the course of the pandemic is this sort of rapid adoption of virtual collaboration. So the fact that companies were able to quickly pivot in, less than 10 days is what actually ended up happening. We've never seen entire industries have to shift to a new way of work. So that's been, one of the biggest changes to work since probably the Industrial Revolution.
It looks like remote work is here to stay. There's actually some research that my colleagues at the Hiring Lab have done looking at trends in remote job postings on Indeed across 20 different countries. And what they saw is that in all these countries in the spring of 2020, when the pandemic hit and there was all these restrictions, that there was a shift towards remote work in postings. But as over time, restrictions have eased, as vaccines have rolled out, we haven't seen remote work drop so much in many of these occupations where it's risen, suggesting that the spur to try out remote work in many places might have been the pandemic, but the trend looks to outlast it.
We want to make sure that we understand the kind of labor force that we have, and not everyone fits into one bucket. And so that's why we have different models, whether it's in office or whether it's a hybrid or whether it's complete remote. We have different models where our employees can be excited about and be able to leverage that to their advantage in terms of how they work.
What COVID taught us is that we don't need to be together 100% of the time to be effective. But that in-person human connection is still very important for team building and maintaining company culture. And so the approach that we ended up adopting is called virtual first. And this means that remote work is the primary experience for all of our employees, right? But we know that there will always be times when it makes sense to come together in person. So we've repurposed our real estate portfolio into what we're calling Dropbox studios. And the use cases for these are really meaningful in-person collaboration. So things like strategy meetings, learning and development, and team events.
I think the biggest benefit, obviously, is it also provides the opportunity to be flexible around personal life and work. And so people are taking advantage of that. It does also provide that opportunity to look at different locations and where people want to spend their time, because then you are not tied to one location where you have to go in every single day. And so that provides a lot of flexibility around that. Now, the challenges, as you can imagine, is around, before the pandemic, we had the opportunity to see our colleagues and interact in person. And even as we have gotten used to virtual work, there is still the need to connect with people. And so sometimes people would want to connect and in person. And so that poses a challenge. Obviously, as you know, technology, in as much as it's enabled us to do what we have to do, sometimes there could be some technology glitches, as you can imagine.
One of the downsides is that actually we've found that in data from a variety of sources that people are commuting less because of remote work, but it's not as though they are taking that commute time for their own personal time. It looks like they're actually using that time to work. So there actually has been some slight increase in work time. Another potential pullback or sort of drawback of remote work is that it might be hard for employees who are at the beginning of their careers to really make inroads, whether it's learning directly from more tenured employees. So that might be sort of make it more difficult in a more remote first world for them to really advance their career. But some of the upsides of remote work for employers include the fact that they might be able to hire workers they might not have considered before, who live in a different part of the region or the country. And then also, if there's fewer people going into the office for fewer days a week, in the long run, that means employers can spend less on real estate. That seems like a boon to their financial bottom line.
So I keep saying it's a really exciting time to be working. This is the most change and transition and disruption that we've had to work in a very long time, right? So it's an interesting time to be a part of a workforce and to kind of see and make decisions and about what the future of work might look like. And certainly I think that the technology has come a long way and we are in a different place, and it's nice to be able to take advantage of that, so that people can feel, like they're working towards a mission and they feel fulfilled, but also, they're paying attention to their own desires and interests and what their goals would be with their own work too.